Good morning, market snipers. Welcome back. This is Jesse. We're getting started a little bit early today, not 9 a.m. Pacific. Oh, now it's 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, right on the dot. Here we go. Here we go. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hopefully you got outside. It was raining yesterday, so and last night as well, and early into the morning for us. So we didn't get to spend a lot of time outside yesterday, but we did still take the baby and the dog out to the park for probably an hour total. It's not as much as we would like to, but still did it. Still did it. Still got out in the rain. Dog kept wanting to go out to the backyard and hang out and play, and it was raining out. So I'm like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" So I opened the door, and then she had second thoughts. So she didn't want to go out there. Woo! What's going on? What's going on? Long weekend. For me, anyways, because the wife was out of town. I mentioned on the last live stream that there wasn't going to be any more live streams the rest of the week because I had surgery, and so I had to wait for the anesthesia to kind of wear off. About 24 hours. I'm a lightweight, so it took about 24 hours for it to wear off fully. And then the wife was leaving town the next day because her grandmother passed away. So she's 97. She's been in hospice for a year, lived a long, full life. So it was good for her to get back with family and all kind of hang out, which means that post-surgery, I was taking care of the baby at nights and on Saturday. So no live streams, but here we are Monday morning, right back at it. Thankfully, the nanny is back 7:30 a.m. this morning and allows us to jump on here and get rock and rolling on the charts. Wow, a lot started to happen over the last couple of days, and last night with the NASDAQ futures, SP 500 futures, all that. So we're going to get into it. What is the title? Pending sell signal on Bitcoin. Yep, this is the Bitcoin chart. NASDAQ and more, right? So we're going to get into it. This might be a long one, so grab some coffee or caffeine or whatever you do over there. Because we got a lot to cover. So, but before we do, just want to say good morning to everybody. Good morning, Arnold, longtime market sniper in the Discord. Tutu guy. Hello. Alex. Morning, all. Finally going to make one live. Awesome. Going to be different listening to Jesse live at 1x speed. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people watch the recorded coaching videos because it's like over 60 plus hours of recorded coaching from 2022. And the strategy hasn't changed, right? So I haven't changed my strategy. But a lot of people say that they watch it on 1.75 speed or 2 speed. I don't know how they do that and retain any information because I personally can't. Maybe I could do 1.25 speed, and I'd rather listen to it slowly. Yes, it would take longer, but I would absorb, me personally, a lot more information, and I would remember most of it, right? But when you go fast, yeah, you can go through more of it. But me personally, I won't be able to absorb as much as I want through all that. So me, I can't watch it on higher speeds. I'd rather just like, okay, yeah, I might it might take me longer to get through a video, but if it's worth the information like the recorded coaching videos are, in my opinion, then I'd rather go slower and absorb it instead of having to watch it 2 or 3 times, right? Or miss key things because there's things in there that you may think you're blowing through it fast, but maybe it doesn't really hit home. So anyways, but awesome, Alex. Awesome. Kyle, good morning. So this Bitcoin chart, we talked about it. We covered it. 6 days in a row, Bitcoin failed to make a higher high on the candle close. Yes, it wicked above it, but it never candle closed above it, right? So I know there's a lot of wick guys out there who say, oh, it made a higher high on the wick. Okay, yes, it did. But I care more about the candle closes, right? So the candle closes, it was rejected 6 days in a row, I believe. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6 days in a row it was rejected and closed lower. To me, that tells me a lot more about what's happening than a wick above it, right? Because the wick above it could just be, as people like to say, a liquidity grab. So take out the stop losses, take out the high leverage liquidation levels, right? So people have their liquidation level set above that wick, and that wick took out all of that, and then price reverses back down. So it tells me more about the candle closes that never closed back above the 106 on December 17th. So it's been about 40 days since a new candle close, a new all-time high candle close has been made, and now price is starting to break down again on the daily chart. So maybe you can consider this a double top. It's way too early, right? We have a pending sell signal. Caesar, good morning. We have a pending sell signal on the daily chart. We have a pending MACD bearish crossover on the pending chart. So we're going to look at today on Bitcoin. We'll probably spend a little bit more time on Bitcoin, but we're going to definitely take a look at the NASDAQ. It looks similar. And then the altcoins and, so the Magnificent Seven. We're going to take a look at all of that the first half of the live stream. If there's anything you want me to chart and we still have time and early bird gets a worm, make sure to put in the ticker symbol, what asset class it is, crypto, stocks, whatever it is, and all the details. Are you long? Are you short? Blah, blah, blah. And we'll cover it on the second half of the live stream. So we'll do your chart requests. Just put in all the details so we can keep the live streaming. Obviously, none of this is financial advice, educational purposes only, and hopefully we find a little bit of entertainment along the way. It's hard to find a little bit of entertainment along the way, though, because I'm talking to myself, right? If I had someone to talk to besides myself in the camera, of course, I'm talking to all of you via text, via comments over here, but I could joke back and forth with someone if they're on here, but I don't have that. So we'll just try to make it as not as boring as possible, right? Not as boring as possible. So pending sell signal on the daily chart, pending MACD bearish crossover, no pending RSI sell signal yet, but could in the very near future. Remember, there is bearish divergence going all the way back to November 11th. Bearish divergence, continued bearish divergence. The indicator is not picking it up, but there's continued bearish divergence, right? Continued bearish divergence. And then is this a lower high? Is this going to be a lower high? So you've got, here we'll put on, well, this one is more based off of the 4-hour chart. So these targets over here, let me go over here for the daily chart. So the daily chart, you've got bearish divergence, right? So bearish divergence going all the way over here because this is the high. And then you have a potential lower high over here, barely. You could also call it a double top, right? Obviously, it's too early to call it yet. It's too early to call it yet, but it is starting to look like it. So you have bearish divergence followed by a possible slightly lower high, and or you could call it a double top, right? So that's what you're looking at on the daily chart. Still overall in an uptrend, right? Still overall in an uptrend. So it's pretty early. If you look at it, it's still an uptrend overall on the daily chart. But are you waiting for a price to come back down to $90,000 before taking profits? That's up to you. That's what you have to decide. So otherwise, you get that pending sell, come down here like this, bounce up, maybe puts in another lower high, comes back up, back test, takes some time to play out, right? And then maybe it comes down to lower targets like that. Don't forget the CME gap is over here at like $73,000 as well. But yeah, that's the daily chart. I'll put yellow over there. So that's a possibility, right? And here's the thing. It's like, I know it's the 4-year cycle, right? Some people argue it's a 3.5-year cycle. It's a 4-year cycle, Jesse. Come on. It's up only. I know. But what I've been talking about since 2020 and 2021 is that it's been lesser to the upside and lesser to the downside slightly on Bitcoin. So I see people out there comparing 2017. I wouldn't compare 2025 to 2017. It's a completely different market. Completely different market. And I'm not just saying that to say that. I'm saying that because Bitcoin futures wasn't even created until December 2017, right? So paper Bitcoin was starting to get created, say end of 2017, heading to the bear market of 2018. There was no ETFs, that at least not in America. Maybe there was one ETF somewhere off in La La Land or blah 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 land. I'm sure someone could correct me somewhere. Leverage, all that stuff. Maybe there was some leverage out there. I don't know. I wasn't trading Bitcoin in 2017, so I don't know for sure. But there wasn't as much as there is now, and that's the point I'm trying to make right now. There's Bitcoin futures. There are Bitcoin ETFs in America. There are Bitcoin futures options, which is extreme leverage, right? Extreme leverage. And then, of course, you have all the perpetual leverage out there, too, on all the different exchanges. So, and then there's other types of leverage, too. Like you could borrow against your Bitcoin. You can take out a loan and buy Bitcoin. That would, like, even if it was like a 5 or 6% interest rate, I would consider that leverage, even if you buy spot Bitcoin, because, you have to repay that loan. And if you bought at the top, like say if this was the top, it's not confirmed yet. If it's the top, and you took out a loan and bought Bitcoin up here and you're making payments on it, at some point, you're either going to have to sell your Bitcoin to pay off some of the loan, or you're going to be stuck holding a loan and your Bitcoin is going to be upside down. So I still consider that leverage. Anytime you're not just taking cash and buying spot, that's going to be leverage, right? Whether it's 1x, 2x, 3x, or you got the gamblers at 100x, right? You might make money short term. You might capture a couple of them here or there. But 99% of traders, like day traders who trade with high leverage, 99% of them long-term are not profitable. So there's that. Are you one of the 1%? Maybe you're profitable short-term. I'm talking about longer term. Shorter term, maybe it's 95% or 90%. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think the study done by like what is it, maybe it was Berkeley, or I can't remember who it was, but it was a California. Ooh, alert. alert. What's going on? Let me check out the alert real quick. Okay. All right. Just keep an eye on it. Yeah, so the leverage is out there in 2025. Doesn't even compare to 2017. So and it's psychological too, right? It's psychological because if you have $1,000 to your name, and I posted about this on Twitter X app, 59% of Americans supposedly don't have $1,000 in case of an emergency saved up. I believe it, but I don't know for certain, and I don't know how they're getting their data, but it seems believable. But supposedly 59% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved for an emergency. And one of the tricks that larger stock companies do, like Apple, Tesla has been doing it. Nvidia did it recently. They do it. They do like a 10-to-1 stock split, right? Or a 5-to-1 stock split. And the reason why they do that is because psychologically people think it's too expensive, right? And psychologically they can't buy one stock at $2,000 because they only have $1,000, right, to use. So if it's $2,000, they do a 5-to-1 stock split, or just say 10-to-1 stock split. Now the stock's only $200 per share, and now they can buy 5 shares, right? So that's why they do those stock splits, in my opinion, is they do them so that more people feel that they can afford them, right? They can afford to buy and capture more retail investors, right? Smaller fish. Bitcoin doesn't have that. Yes, they have Satoshis, but to educate people on that you can still buy $1,000, it's still psychological that you can't buy one Bitcoin for $1,000. You can buy one Algorand for 37 cents or just under 37 cents. But one Bitcoin right now is still about $100,000. So if you have $1,000, maybe you're not buying it because for psychological reasons. So that's just my own personal opinion. And so that's why I think a lot of the stock splits happen, is so that they they make people think that it's a that they can actually afford to buy one share of stock. I don't know why I went down that tangent, but for psychological reasons, 98. Oh, that's why. And so, all right, I'll tie it all back in. Another reason why 2017 is different than 2025 because the price, right? People might think it's too expensive because of the number itself. Woo-wee. Yep. All right. So pending sell signal. Let's go back over to here, and then let's go into the 4-hour chart. So the 4-hour chart, there's going to be a lot more buy and sell signals the lower time frame that you go. But I just want to point out that I started showing that the 4-hour chart was starting to break down from this upper trend line back over here on Wednesday. Here we are on Monday. And of course, it came down to target 2. Target 1 is up here. It came down to target 2, bounced hard, captured some more bulls over here, right? And it started to look like possibly a bull trap has been set. Too early to say. But what I can say is some that sell courses out there, some were very quick to call me out, basically, and who have been trading maybe 10, 20, 30, who knows, 20 years, right? I'm not going to mention any names. I could probably pull it up on Twitter if I want, but not going to. But they were saying bears deserve nothing, right? I'm not a bear. And sometimes I'm a bear because the charts are bearish. But most of the time I'm a bull because the charts are mostly bullish, right? It's usually more bullish than it is bearish if you look at the charts longer term. So usually you'll consider me a bull, but there are times when you'll consider me a bear because the charts are bearish, right? So there were a lot of bearish signs on higher time frames down here. And down here, they're saying bears deserve nothing, right? But I said down here that in the shorter term, if the higher time frames are starting to roll over, if the higher time frames like the 5-day chart or the weekly chart start to look bearish, not only do you expect bounces along the way, but there could be a short-term bounce, right? There could be a short-term bounce while higher time frames start to look bearish because uh, they're lagging indicators, right? And sure enough, it bounced all the way up and made a new all-time high wick with a wick, but not a candle close. And now here we are. So we're somewhere in between. Are we going to make new all-time highs, or are we going to take out this pivot down here below $90,000? So we don't have a magic crystal ball, but the higher time frames are telling us and showing us some bearish signs. So we're going to take a look at them. So we're going to look at some of the negatives of why Bitcoin can go below $90,000. That's what we're going to look at. And so my response is going to be, if we take out that pivot point of $90,000 or 90,900, don't worry. I'm going to respond to bears deserve nothing with cocky bulls deserve nothing. Don't worry. Snipers wait. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now it's kind of consolidating on the 4-hour chart, letting the trending dots kind of catch up. It was a big move down with the trending dots still up at 104. Just takes time, right? Just takes time. It was starting to get oversold. Then there was a reverse candle. And now it's just kind of coming back down while the trending dots are catching up, while the moving averages are catching up, all that stuff. But prices hit 3 out of 4 shorter term targets. And we're going to be looking at, will price take out that pivot point? The probabilities are going to increase if Bitcoin doesn't find support at target 3 or target 4 shorter term. Then the probabilities are going to increase that we're going to come down and test this low. And if we start getting candle closes back below here, then the probabilities if the candles start to close below target 4. Oh, that was a quick bot trade. Wow. I'm going to have to take a look at that real quick. If it's that quick of a trade on the Market Sniper bot, then it's going to be a win, right? Usually the losses take a lot, like hours, right? Yeah, quick win. See, it was in the market while we were live, 9:13. So it took a new trade, 9:14. So it was 7 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. It was in the trade. Boom. Quick win. The gross saying 267 on the gross. But the net is probably lower because you got slippage and fees and stuff like that. But woo-wee. Okay. Start the day off with a Market Sniper Trade Bot 2, $267 gross win. All right. Back to live charts. I think the trading bot is 19 out of the last 20 wins. So I had 1 loss and 19 out of the last 20 were wins. However, we did experience, like, it's not typical results. Like if it goes on a 36 win streak, that's not typical results. And I talked about that when the trading bot did go on a 36 win streak back in, like, I don't know, September or October. I can't remember now. And then recently we had like 4 losses in a shorter period of time. And so the month of, what was it? I don't know. I can't remember now. I got too much that I'm looking at nowadays. Can't remember it all, but there was like 4 losses in a short period of time before the final, like, 19 out of 20 wins. And it takes a little bit of time for the accounts to recover, right? It takes a little bit of time. So there's always a drawdown. So depending on when you start the bot, you could start it, get lucky, and have a win streak. You could start it, and there's like 4 losses within, like, I don't know, what was it, like 8 trades, 9 trades. And so your account could be underwater And so you need, not only do you need $12,650 to trade one gold futures contract, that's what I'm running the bot on right now. You need $12,650 minimum to trade one gold futures contract with the broker that we're using. Some brokers require $16,000, right? But you also need like at least probably $5,000 to $10,000 or more. Like I think you should have double the account, right? So, and that's still probably pretty risky. So if you're going to trade one gold futures contract for $12,650, to be safe, you probably want $25,000. So if you do jump in and there's early losses, the account can handle it, and then you're still in the game for that next win streak. Because when you're on a win streak, I always say the next loss is around the corner. And after there's been a loss or a couple losses, then I always say there's the next win streak is around the corner. So, anyways, not to get too sidetracked. Are we alive still? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're alive. What are you talking about? So Bitcoin 4-hour chart. Yeah. So if you start getting candle closes back below target 4 and target 4 or target 3 does not hold, target 1 did not hold, target 2 did not hold, and now we're at target 3. So if target 3 or target 4 does not hold as support, and you start getting candle closes below, then see the arrow down, right? And then you're talking about retesting down here. And if you start getting candle closes back below here, that's going to confirm this a lower low. And then you're going to go back to lower prices that we've had on the charts, whether it's, $84,000, $73,000, the CME gap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one negative, right? So that's negative number one. You start getting candle closes below target 4. If then, again, we don't have a magic crystal ball. If then, negative 1. All right. What else? The daily chart. You get a sell signal. It's not looking great. If you get a sell signal and you get another MACD bearish crossover, right? Doesn't look great, especially around the 0 line. Doesn't look great. That would be another negative. So we're kind of ramping up the time frames. So you've got the 4-hour chart. You get closes below target 4. What is that about? Below 96,000, right? You start closing below 96,000. It's not great. And then of course on the daily chart, you start closing below 92,500. That's not great, right? So that's a negative. Another MACD bearish crossover, and then another RSI sell signal. Those are all additional bearish things to consider. And then, of course, you work your way up to the 5-day chart, right? 5-day chart doesn't look great. So that could have been a bull trap, right? Could have been a bull trap. So it crossed over bearish. We talked about this, covered the Bitcoin 5-day MACD chart. And we talked about that it could take whatever the price decreases, whether it's 20%, 30%, 50%, or more, right? The last time the MACD had a crossover at this high of a level, it took 4 months. Yeah, it was about a 30, 35% correction, but it took 4 months for the ship to get turned around and go through another pump, right? So not expecting it to flip back around quickly. And that could be, it's way too early to call it on the 5-day chart because the 5-day chart doesn't end. It just started yesterday. It doesn't end until Friday, right? So a lot can happen and it could cross back up again, right? So we had a crossover, which is negative. That's a bearish crossover. We had the MACD histogram decreasing. So there was divergence, right? And then we had a crossover, bullish crossover on the last candle close on the 21st. So it's starting to look like a fake out to the upside. It's starting to look like that was a possible bull trap. Again, way too early to call it. Way too early to call it. But if after that bullish crossover last week, if we get another bearish crossover, the probabilities are extremely high. Of course, it could cross back over, of course, but we're talking about a 5-day chart. So if it crosses back over, which it's below right now, so it crossed over bullish. If it closes bearish again in a short period of time, I'm not seeing a reversal on Bitcoin for a while, right? I think it's going to take some time to play out. So that in hindsight, it'll be a bull trap, right? It would have been a bull trap set. And there was an example before there was a bullish crossover officially. I covered the example where it could cross over, come up like here, and then cross back over like that, right? I gave that example on one of the live streams, or maybe the last live stream. And it was based off of Apple and NVIDIA doing the same thing, right? So NVIDIA and Apple crossed over bullish and then crossed back over, and both of them made new all-time highs. And Bitcoin just had a bullish crossover and just made a new all-time high on the wick, but not the candle close. So that was one example I gave before there was ever even a bullish crossover. So just pointing that out. But here we are. By the end of this, it could still cross back over bullish and continue up higher like this. But if it does cross back over like it does now, and of course the 5-day chart is slow moving, right? So we'll have a sell signal by then on the daily chart. We'll have, the MACD bearish crossover on the daily chart by then, blah, blah, blah. So the odds will continue to increase that, if it is crossing over again bearish, it'll probably end that way by Friday. So we'll see how today shakes out. So that's another bearish thing to consider, is the 5-day crossing back over. And there's still an RSI sell signal. There's still an RSI sell signal on the 5-day chart. And you had bearish divergence on the 5-day chart. So you had bearish divergence. The trend looks like it's flipping on the 5-day chart as well. So as price was moving higher, relative strength on the 5-day chart was decreasing, right? So it's all the way back down to 61.82 right now. And you can see the bearish divergence on the 5-day chart. So if we look at that, slightly higher high on the 5-day chart, while RSI made a lower high, right? So there's bearish divergence on the 5-day chart as well. And so, of course, it could reverse back around. But again, the probabilities are increasing. So candle closes below target 4 on the 4-hour chart. Sell signal pending on the daily chart. MACD bearish crossover pending on the daily chart. MACD bearish crossover pending again on the 5-day chart. What's the weekly chart doing? Weekly chart does not have a pending bearish crossover. But there is a pending RSI sell signal, right? Pending bearish RSI sell signal. Just started today, though. Just started today. So it's got all the way until Sunday for it to close with a sell signal. It could disappear. And then it could come back. It could disappear again. It could come back. So it's going to take some time for that to play out. But that would be another sign over here. It doesn't mean prices couldn't go higher, right? So if you have a sell signal, it doesn't mean prices couldn't go higher in the shorter term. And then, but eventually, we'd be looking at a bigger correction, right? So that's another one to look at. Let's see. Let's look at the 2-week chart. What are we looking at in the 2-week chart? There was a reversal candle on the 2-week chart over here. It's not a great sign. The 2-week chart has not made a new highest candle close. That's at 104,579. So this would be the fourth. Let's see. The candle closes. Oh, doesn't close till February 3rd. But this would be the fourth 2-week candle close in a row that Bitcoin did not make a new higher high on the 2-week chart candle close, right? And then if you look down here, there was bearish divergence on the 2-week chart. This could be a sneaky lower high over here on the 2-week chart. Again, way too early to call it. Way too early to call it. There's a lot of time remaining in these higher candles. But again, I don't wait for that, me personally. I'm just looking at the overall trend change, right? The overall trend change. And then we work our way up to the monthly chart. So monthly chart had bearish divergence. We're almost at the end of the monthly chart. And this would be maybe the indicator picks it up. Maybe it doesn't. But this would be additional bearish divergence on the monthly chart. Additional bearish divergence on the monthly chart. So it's been overbought. It can remain overbought. It can remain diverged for much longer than what people think. And that could be additional bearish divergence on the monthly chart. So there you go. We started out the lower time frames, worked our way up to the daily chart, worked our way up to the 5-day chart, worked our way up to the weekly chart, the 2-week chart, woo, and then even the monthly chart. What else? Oh, one more negative. I've talked about this many times on Twitter for over 4 years. Over 4 years now. Welcome, Jesse, when you pop to East EU to hike. Huh? What? So the other negative in what I've talked about many times with Bitcoin, in my opinion, and this is an unpopular belief, is still a speculative asset. I still think of Bitcoin as like a tech stock, right? Obviously, it's crypto, but it behaves and sometimes is correlated with the NASDAQ, in my opinion, and sometimes with the SP 500. And people argue back and forth if it's correlated or not correlated or blah, 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 blah. Javier, welcome back. But there's been points where Bitcoin and the NASDAQ has been correlated like 90 to 95%, like 92% correlation, right? And sometimes it's not. It's uncorrelated. I don't make trading decisions just based off of that alone. But it's something that I keep in mind, right? Yes, if you look at Bitcoin from a 10-year standpoint, yes, it's a store of value. If you look at Bitcoin from a 5-year standpoint, yes, it has been a store of value. But I'm looking at it through a lens of a swing trader. And if you buy the dip at $105,000 and then price goes to $40,000 or $35,000 or whatever it goes to, then it's not a store of value, right? It's not a store of value. You'd have to hold it a very long time. And then there's no guarantee, right? You could also say the same thing for the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is a store of value if you zoom out 5, 10, 15, 20 years because it's up and to the right. But that's but a lot of people will consider that a store of value just because it's, it's keeping up with inflation. And then Bitcoin does keep up better than inflation, or it has so far. The future is never guaranteed. But if you look at the NASDAQ.com bubble of 2000, 2001, if you bought at the top, it wasn't a store of value. It dropped 82%, and it didn't get back to the all-time highs for like 15 or 17 years. It's at least 15 years for it to come all the way back to the top. So that wouldn't be a store of value for like 15 years. And if you factor in inflation or the dollar value, it wasn't a good store of value. And do you have 15 years to wait? So for me as a swing trader, I would rather lock in profits with realized gains when it's at a top, because what if it does go through a dot-com bubble type of correction? You never know. It's always going to be in hindsight. Oh, it was really easy to see in hindsight. So if it were to be that, you wouldn't know until it's too late. And then you're probably taking, getting out of your position 40 to 50% off or lower. And then you're probably upside down and whatever. And then you're too scared to buy the bottom, later on anyways. And so, all of that was for nothing. Right. And if you're on leverage, then you probably got liquidated. So when there's high leverage and there's a lot of leverage out there, which there is, maybe not as much as 2021, but there is a lot. And when there is, it's healthy to wipe out and get a correction, because you start hearing the up only, up only, up only, up only, and eventually it's not up only, right? So just be aware of that. It's healthy for corrections, because if everything just gets overbought, whether it's stock market, whether it's real estate, whatever the case may be, or whatever asset you're looking at, if it gets overbought, the new participants can't come in, right? The younger generations can't come in. So it's healthy for major corrections to happen, so the younger generations can get in and we start the cycle all over again. So if you were to buy Bitcoin at 105,000, let's take the last cycle. If you bought Bitcoin at $65,000, well, then you had to wait, and you never sold, right? Where is it? If you bought Bitcoin at $65,000, right, in November 2021, or $65,000 in April of 2021, right? Someone bought that wick, or 65,000, 64,000. You had to wait all the way until and my best friend actually did this, right? Bought and then had to go through that whole Celsius thing, and then they like paid him back in Bitcoin. And then so you're looking at the money waiting all the way until, what is that? 850 days at least you had to wait just to break even. Or from here to here, over 1,000 days just to break even, while we saw massive inflation over the last 4 years. And then, of course, price came back down to 49,000 again. And then finally start to see a return on investment after 1,300 days, when price starts getting up to $75,000. So my point is, could have you bought something else that did a lot better during that span? And the answer is yes, right? Whether it was NVIDIA, whether it was Abercrombie and Fitch, blah, 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 blah. There were so many different things that you could have bought during that span that would have performed better, right? So that's my point. 1,300 days for it to finally start to get a return on investment if you bought this top and you never sold, right? So that's the difference of what I'm looking at. So take that for what it is, right? And if you went, like I said, if you bought the NASDAQ.com bubble, it took like 15 years. So at least, 5 years or 4 years isn't as bad as 15 years, but that's the point. But Bitcoin hasn't experienced a NASDAQ.com bubble. And what I've been talking about for about 4 years, a little over 4 years probably. If the NASDAQ is going through a bigger correction, whether it's 20, 30, or more percent of a correction, expect Bitcoin to go through a bigger correction. It's not going to be a store of value, in my personal opinion. If the NASDAQ is correcting 30%, Bitcoin is probably down 50 or 60% or more, right? If Bitcoin is down 50 or 60%, most likely altcoins are down 70, 80, 90% or dead, right? So compared to the altcoins is better, but compared to the NASDAQ's not going to have as deep of a correction as like a Bitcoin, and that's based off the past, and that's based off of my personal opinion. So just keep that in mind. If the NASDAQ goes through a 30% correction, and we're going to get into the NASDAQ right now, but I just want to kind of set the stage for covering the NASDAQ, because it's not going to be a store of value, because if people need to pay the bills, if there's leverage and the position needs to be closed, or it gets closed for them with a liquidation, or people have to pay taxes, or there's a big tax bill, or they lose a job, or whatever it is, blah blah blah, and you need to pay bills, and the only thing you can pay bills with, because you're already maxed out on credit card debt, and I think there's like $1 trillion in credit card debt. You're maxed out on student loan debt. You're maxed out on your mortgage debt, because you try to consolidate all your bills. You try to consolidate, your credit card debt, your personal loans, your car loans. You're in $1,000 car payment, whatever it is. And the only thing you can do is sell your Bitcoin or sell your stocks or whatever to pay said bills and put food on the table. Guess what? That's what you're going to do. So it's not a store of value, because it's a speculative asset. And if you need to pay bills or pay off things, then you're going to sell your Bitcoin, right? Then you're going to sell your Bitcoin. If you don't need to, then you don't need to sell your Bitcoin, but then you're going to possibly see your Bitcoin decrease in value anyway. So it's a pending sell signal on the daily chart. If we click over to the NASDAQ, we also have a pending sell signal on the daily chart, right? No pending MACD bearish crossover yet. And so what if this was the top? What if this is a lower high? And what if right? And what if price eventually comes back to the 200-week moving average? What if? If that were to happen, and we don't know if it will or not, then that'd be about a 30% correction. And that would be a very, very healthy correction, coming all the way back down the 200-week moving average, right? It came back to the 200-week moving average back here. We talked about it in 2021. We talked about it in December 2021, that it was looking like the NASDAQ could have a bigger correction, and it hadn't retested the 200-week moving average since 2020, right? So it was on a 2-year run, and we talked about price possibly coming back to the 200-week moving average. In hindsight, I was right? There were signs that the NASDAQ was rolling over. That could be the top, that could be a lower high, and that price comes back down the 200-week moving average. Now, it takes time for it to all play out, right? So even from that sell signal all the way down here, it took what is that? A half of a year, right? 185 days. It took 6 months for price to come all the way back down the 200-week moving average. So I'm not expecting it to happen tomorrow. I mean, it'd be amazing if it did. I would definitely capitalize on it with a short. Otherwise, I'm mostly on lower time frame shorts in and out, because futures is, you can get wrecked. And I don't want to hold the futures contracts. I don't want to hold something 3 months out. So I'm on lower time frames, and the moves are pretty big. So with the leverage. So anyways, is this a top? Too early to say. Is this a lower high similar to December 2021? Maybe. Was this a breakdown of that upper trend line? Price comes back up, back tests, gets rejected, and comes back down. It's looking like that. It's looking like a back test and resumption lower. And this would be a candle close back below the trailing dots. This would be another sell signal. And it would be a 30% drop to the 200-week moving average. And if you look back December 2021, I don't think it was that big. I mean, maybe from wick to wick it was. Let's see, wick to the 200-week moving average, 33%, right? It ended up going lower, 37%. And then we talked about the buy the dip, right? So it wasn't just that we were bearish, also looking to buy that dip as well, right? And we had it on the weekly chart. So if you look at the weekly chart, 2020 bounced off of it, had a nice 2-year run, almost 2-year run. And then you had that sell signal over here on the weekly chart and came all the way back down. And then you can see even the breakout on the daily chart and then the weekly chart, and then had another nice, let's see, that was from basically another nice 2-year run on NASDAQ, right? So it feels like it's deja vu, right? Feels like it's deja vu for me. And I was one of the only people on my Twitter feed that was calling out a correction on the NASDAQ, which means I'll be calling out the Bitcoin correction as well. If the NASDAQ's going through a 30% correction, I would be very, 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 very surprised if Bitcoin goes up higher. I'd be so surprised, right? I always trade each chart individually first and foremost, but I'd be very, very surprised if Bitcoin goes up higher while the NASDAQ is going through a 30% correction. Very, very surprised. So there is a pending MACD bearish crossover on the weekly chart. You can see that I was pointing out that there's bearish divergence, pointed out way back here in December, right? Again, December 2021, December, blah, blah, blah. So you got bearish divergence on the MACD weekly chart. If you go back to 2021, where is it? Over here, right? Bearish divergence, and the MACD crossed back over and came all the way back down below the zero line, right? Went pretty far low. So that's bearish divergence on the MACD here. I'm pretty sure. We can double check. So you go like that, so, which means price would be going higher, right? So you got bearish divergence there. You got bearish divergence here. Pending MACD bearish crossover. So you look at it. Yep. See, price was making a higher high while the MACD had bearish divergence, while the weekly chart had bearish divergence on the RSI as well. And you had bearish divergence over here too. So a lot of similarities from last time. A lot of similarities. I'm not even a doom and gloomer. But yeah, that's bearish divergence. Price is making a higher high, right? Price is making a higher high compared to here. Price made a higher high compared to here. So bearish divergence on the NASDAQ weekly chart for RSI and the MACD. Woo! How are we doing over here? How are we doing? I'm out of water, by the way. I'm out of water. I'm thinking you guys want to keep going, right? You guys smash the like button though. Help me, help you, help me. Let's see. Get a refresh. Get a refresh. 18 likes. That's it. That's it. 18 likes on the video so far. Just 5 comments. Not a lot of comments. Let's go over here, try to help out the algorithms. Let's see. There we go. Oh, now we're starting to get a little bit more likes. There we go. Repost and throw in a comment. Throw in a comment. Help me, help you, help me. There we go. Whatever it is. Could be emoji. Could be emoji. All right. So bearish divergence on the MACD. Another pending crossover. Bearish divergence on RSI weekly chart. And a lot of similarities of why NASDAQ could come back down to the 200-week moving average, right? And why is that, right? It's not deep seek. It's not because of deep seek, right? It's not because of X, Y, Z in the news, right? This has been playing out for months, right? This has been playing out on the charts for months. Look at this. July to December divergences, right? It's not because of deep seek. August to November is not because of deep seek way back here in 2021, right? It's not because of that. So it's not, this is not breaking down because of deep seek. So that's just silly nonsense, right? It's great for the influencers out there to talk about it. It's the newest, hottest, shiny object and get some views. So good for them. But that's not why price is breaking down. The simple answer of why price is breaking down, in my opinion, and this is going to be oversimplified. Yeah, it's probably more complicated, but it doesn't matter if it's more complicated because it doesn't help you with swing trading. Keeping it simple, keeping it, based off of the charts, this is the simpleness, right? Price came back, retested the 200-week moving average on the NASDAQ. Price pumped for 2 years. It's not up only. Price was getting overbought on the weekly chart for the NASDAQ. There was divergences. There was profit taking. Price comes back to the 200-week moving average. Now price is getting sexy again for the investors, for the big players. Then there is a buy signal over here. And then price pumps for another 2 years, give or take. There's price is getting overbought. There's bearish divergence. And now there's profit taking again. And now it's overbought. It's overextended. And a better time to buy is down here, right? So bigger players, if they were buying down here like we were, right? I'm not a bigger player. I'm not a billionaire, nowhere even close to that. But bigger players are buying down here and they're selling up here. That's massive for them, right? That's massive. That's 83% in 2 years. So 40% return over 2 years. Guess what? If they want 40% return over 2026, 2027, whatever it is, then they need to buy when price is lower, right? They need to buy when price is lower. So price comes down, there's 30%, and then goes on another 2-year run possibly. Never a guarantee, but if it were to play out like that, that's how it would look, right? That's how it would look. And you buy down here when it's low, you sell up here into the FOMO. Sell into FOMO and then buy low, right? It's oversimplified, but it's profit taking. It's been a good run. So say they sell and then they hedge their bets to the downside on other things. Maybe they don't make as much of a good return. Maybe it's only 5 to 10% because it's not the NASDAQ just going up only. But then you average it out over 5 years. You got 40 plus 40 plus 5 is 85 divided by 3. You're looking at about 30% returns per year. And then the next run starts. So that's the way I look at it. And the NASDAQ comes back to the 200-week moving average, right? Came back close in 2018, didn't quite come all the way back. And if you go back to 2008, it went well below the 200-week moving average. I mean, well below it. So during that time, it went 40% below the 200-week moving average. So there's always that possibility. If you get the 200-week moving averages over here, you can see the dot-com bubble era as well. Not saying that's going to happen, but that was 83%. And if you kind of eyeball test the 200-week moving average, came about 60 to 70% below the 200-week moving average back then. But even if it's not 2008, even if it's not the dot-com bubble era, it still came close in 2018. It still came back to it in 2020. It still came back to it and went below it in 2022. So that is a higher probability that at least price comes back to the 200-week moving average every couple of years. 18, 20, 2022, and here we are already in 2025, right? So it'll have been more than 2 years since it's been back to the 200-week moving average. And then, of course, it is always a possibility that something bigger happens. Not only is it 30%, but then it comes down even lower, similar to the dot-com, dot-com or 2008, right? Comes even lower. And that 32 at 10,488 would be 50%, it's always a possibility, right? But until that happens, I'm looking at the 200-week moving average and not getting ahead of myself, right? Not getting ahead of myself. So pending MACD bearish crossover on the NASDAQ, and this is why I set the stage for Bitcoin first and foremost. And then I circle back to the NASDAQ and then circle back to the Bitcoin. If the NASDAQ is going to go through a bigger correction to the 200-week moving average, then most likely Bitcoin will as well. And you got Bitcoin coming back to the 200-week moving average would be below $50,000, right? It would be below $50,000. Just like when Bitcoin started to go through its correction back over here, when the NASDAQ did as well, right? The NASDAQ came back to the 200-week moving average and went slightly below. So did Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin also went back to the 200-week moving average and below it. And you can see when the NASDAQ dropped 30%, Bitcoin dropped 78%. When it went slightly below the 200-week moving average, Bitcoin went 30% below it, right? In 2020, the NASDAQ didn't quite reach the 200-week moving average. It just missed it, but Bitcoin went lower, right? So Bitcoin's correction went 72%, and below it, it went 28%, right? Came back to it in 2018 as well. So is it about the cycle? A little bit. But is it more about the NASDAQ? I think so. So if the NASDAQ is correcting, no matter what is going on with the cycle, if the NASDAQ is going back to the 200-week moving average, and we don't know for sure if it is or is not, if the NASDAQ goes back to the 200-week moving average, then not only will Bitcoin go back to the 200-week moving average, but it'll actually go below it. And every time it goes back to it, it's usually about 30% lower, right? So if it's about that 25 to 30%, right? it would come back to those levels. So it's possible. It's possible. So too early to call it as of yet, but there are a lot of bearish signs. So, woo. All right, that's the NASDAQ. We got a lot more to cover. We're at an hour. So I'm going to keep going and cover the rest. I'm not going to spend as much time. But some of the reasons why you want to stick around, because we'll still cover, well, you don't have to, but I think you'll want to stick around because we'll cover the altcoins that are bleeding out more so than Bitcoin. We'll cover some of the stocks that are correcting that I think is pushing the NASDAQ down as well. So we'll get into all that. So let's see. Let's go over here. And I'm going to go get some more water. Back in like 5 minutes. So stay tuned. All right. Ooh, quick little breather. I had to take some deep breaths. Whew. It's a lot. Holy moly, guacamole. So in the pre-market, it was like 1:30 a.m. my time or 2 a.m. my time, and the video was down 8%. It's down 16%. And it's not because of deep seek. That's just nonsense. We're going to get into it, but that's one of the reasons why the NASDAQ is going lower. Also with Apple, I didn't just start posting. This is the DXY, by the way. But the DXY can go through retracement the same time that other stocks are going down as well. So it's not 100% correlated that the dollar pumps and everything else goes down, right? So trade each chart individually. Just want to point that out. We had this on here since January 20th with the sell signal on the dollar. But NVIDIA, woo! These targets were on here way before DeepSeek. Way before DeepSeek, right? This has nothing to do with DeepSeek. So, but what a gap down. That was a massive gap. So we got a gap up here at 142. It may not get filled for a while. We don't know. We don't know when it'll get filled, but it might not get filled for a while. And the reason why I say that, so what I always say is that, and if you probably heard me say this a million times over the years, if you've been following me on Twitter or in the Discord, that not all gaps get filled, but they work great as targets, right? They work great as targets. So whether the gap gets filled tomorrow, the next day, or years from now, right? Years from now, we don't know. We don't know. The gaps can remain open for a while, and that's a 9.5% gap. So that's pretty good, pretty big. You had this gap over here that got filled, right? This gap has not been filled down here. So you can see how long it's been since this gap has been filled. That's about 7.5%. That's all the way down at $69. And if you really want to get crazy, you have a gap down here at $30. And that gap is more significant. That gap is like 18 to 20%, I think. Yeah, call it 18.5%. I pointed out when it gapped up here, said, oh, don't forget about this gap, right? It was a more significant gap, but it could take a long time for it to come back. And if it wasn't going to fill it here, then it could take some time for it to play out. And so you can see where NVIDIA played out very similar to the NASDAQ or vice versa. And price came up to $32-ish, came all the way back down. Of course, this is before the big stock split. You can see there's a split here, 4-to-1 split, and then there was another 10-to-1 split, right? So we talked about the stock splits earlier to make people feel like it's more like they can participate, right? So if you only have $1,000 and NVIDIA was at $2,000, you can't buy one share. So I think they do that on purpose. So you had a 4-to-1 split, you had a 10-to-1 split, and that helps fuel exit liquidity, right? The retailers exit liquidity, and here we are, right? So has not retested the 200-week moving average in a couple of years. So here we are, a couple of years later. The 200-week moving average is down here at $50. You got a gap at 70, a gap at 30. You got these shorter term targets. If you very similar to like Bitcoin stuff, where if you start to see candle closes below target 4 and price does not hold, then we're going to see much bigger, longer term targets get hit, which I haven't drawn out yet. But I'd be drawing them out based off of $12 prices, and so that's but first things first, get through the shorter term targets, and then see how the other targets. And then I could always draw on longer term targets. But so 3 out of 4 targets have been hit so far. Big gap down, right? 9.5% gap down, 7.5% gap here, and then the 18.5% gap all the way down here that have not been hit yet. So it's possible. It's possible. This one really seems possible, especially if it's going to come back down and retest the 200-week moving average. And if it does, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't NVIDIA fill the 18.5% gap? But This happened way before DeepSeek, right? Way before DeepSeek. DeepSeek was over the weekend. You had this rising wedge, and that target has been almost hit, right? That target comes all the way down to target 4, lines up with my target 4, and but doesn't mean it won't flip back around shorter term, right? Come back up, maybe even partially fill it, maybe it doesn't even fully fill it, and then comes back down here, and then we'll find out if it finds support here, or if it doesn't find support here, NVIDIA will come all the way back down. So probabilities will increase of filling this gap if you start getting candle closes below here, right? Then you're taking out this pivot point, you're taking out this pivot point over here, right? And there's not much after that. Then you got this pivot point. So all things considered, another pending sell signal because of the gap, another pending MACD bearish crossover on the daily chart. If you look at the weekly chart, let's take off the drawing. Oh, oops, I always do that. Let's see, let's go like that. And let's hide it. Similar to Apple last week, there was a pending sell signal on the weekly chart for Apple. And then there was a sell signal on Friday for Apple. And now we have a pending sell signal on the weekly chart for NVIDIA. You can see this is a weekly high up here at 147. This was potentially lower high at 144. And now it's breaking back down. So if you look at it, there was bearish divergence on RSI. There was bearish divergence on the MACD, very similar to the NASDAQ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're over an hour, so should we flip it? Flip it? It's been a while. What else? Hold on, we'll keep going. Just gonna take a break. Oh, there's like 2,300 people on the stream, so maybe not a lot of people want to actually comment on it, but there's 2,300 people watching, so sounds like an advertisement. I don't really care. Hey, Jesse, how do you see NVIDIA look reach bottom at 117 and could bounce up? No. I mean, if you're looking at like a very short timeline, like a 1 hour chart or a 15-minute chart or a 5-minute chart or a 1 minute, yeah, maybe, or a 4-hour chart, right? But not on the higher time frames. The higher time frames are saying something completely different, right? 1 hour chart, yeah, it's getting oversold on the 1 hour chart. 15-minute chart, it's getting oversold, right? But those are very small time frames. So yeah, it could catch a little bit of a bounce, right? But the higher time frames are rolling over. And the higher time frames are pending sell signals. And the higher time frames, like the weekly chart, so the overall trend is showing divergences and lower highs, right? And lower highs and divergences on the MACD and trending towards the zero line and stuff like that. So the odds are increasing that the top is in on NVIDIA. And that was an amazing, wild run. Even from the weekly chart buy signal, 880%, right? From wick to wick, maybe you got in a little bit earlier because of the daily chart, 1,200%. So it was what was it, like a $3.5 trillion asset? 2.9 now, right? 2.9. So double wick top. We talked about it, and it's on the chart, and now it's down 23% in the last couple of weeks. Down 23%. So double wick top, and so actually, in how many trading days? 12 trading days. Who's texting me? Oh, someone's texting me. 23%. in 12 trading days. Just think about that. Just think about that. Just think about that. And you think Bitcoin won't drop that far, that fast? Never a guarantee, right? Never a guarantee. Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, gap down. Tesla, gap down. Google, gap down. Gaps all over the place. SPY, gap down, right? QQQ, gap down. So it looks very similar to Apple and NVIDIA and the Magnificent Seven. Apple had a big drop, and now we talked about this. It was getting oversold on the last live stream. I think we talked about it. It was getting oversold on Apple, and then there was a reverse candle, and now it's back up into the trending dots. So that gap has been filled there, and so expect bounces along the way. Expect bounces along the way. ANF continues to drop. It was one of the biggest leaders of 2023, according to Google searches or the internet searches. I can't remember what search engine I used, but according to search, it was one of the biggest gainers of 2023 and probably close to 2024 as well. Still breaking down. Don't forget SMCI, right? Had a similar setup to NVIDIA. And this is the Wall Street cheat sheet blueprint right here, right? So price pumps up, goes parabolic, drops like 40 something %, return to normal, everything's fine, we're going higher, and then rug pull all the way back to the 200-week moving average. So that's what we're looking for, the 200-week moving average. Woo! How are we doing on these altcoins? Algo had a sell signal yesterday on the daily chart, got rejected at the 200-week moving average. Cardano, sell signal a few days ago. H-bar, pending sell signal, had additional bearish divergence. So bearish divergence going all the way back to 14 cents, right? Additional bearish divergence. Woo-wee. By the way, I'm new to Discord. I'm watching the recording. Awesome. Awesome, Luis. Awesome. Welcome. You'll have to, I can't remember everyone's Twitter X name or Discord name or YouTube name. So just hit me up in the direct message. Let me know that you're Luis Andrade, and then I'll try to remember that way. Because you might have a different Discord name, and I might not. If the names are different, then how would I know who's who? But I always like to know who the people are. That's kind of cool. Awesome. Welcome. Good music. Oh yeah, that's there's only like, how many options are there on the media assets? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. There's only 8 options on the background music for StreamYard, and that's like the best one. I don't love it, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, it's okay. It's the best one out of the 8, in my opinion. But it's a trap. It's a trap. What's a trap? What's a trap? What's a trap? Bull trap, bear trap. Most people are calling it a bear trap, right? So it's probably the latter, probably the bull trap. Nah, I don't think so. I already had the short squeeze. Short squeeze already happened. Best man again. Ooh. Right? Right? There can only be one, Thomas. There only can be one. Highlander, there only can be one. So, yeah, I'm gonna circle back to the large accounts who were trolling me, who were celebrating too quickly, who were saying bears deserve nothing. I'm not a bear. The charts were showing bearish signs, and I will circle back in good time, at the right timing, when they're officially wrecked, when they're officially wrecked, I'll circle back and I'll post cocky bears deserve nothing, right? That'll be my response. So there's that. Johnny C, good morning. Good morning, Jo. Good morning, Johnny C. What's up? What else are we gonna look at? Man, I looked earlier, the Bitcoin mining stocks got crushed, MicroStrategy, XRP. No, there was a pending sell signal on XRP. There is bearish divergence on XRP. Right? XLM had a sell signal a few days ago. Pending MACD crossing below the zero line. Okay, cool. Nice. Awesome. XRP, Rari. Woo. Sand, sell signal a few days ago again. Back into target 4, I believe. Where is it? Yeah. Below target 4. That's not good. Well, not quite yet. There's no candle close below it, but if it closes below target 4, that's not good. It means going lower, right? Mana, candle close below takes out all of that, right? A lower low. Ooh, just getting annihilated. Chainlink, Solana. If you bought the dip, did you sell that rip, right? Trump meme coin, right? Ouch, gone. Near, fake out, back down below. Dot, below target 4, right? Oof. Fetch.ai. I've been saying for a while on Fetch.ai looks completely different than the rest of the altcoins. It looks like after making a new all-time high, it's in a bear market because it hasn't made a new all-time high since March 2024. And you're looking at 80% drop over a year, right? So over a year, the probabilities are increasing that it's coming back to 66 cents. So did you sell the top? Most likely not. Theta, gold, back into the consolidation box. Could be a lower high on gold. Silver is kind of showing that. Silver might be leading the way on gold with the lower high, breaking down this longer term upward trend line, come back to the 200-week moving average. Similar, right? Right? What else? Hut. Oh, wow. Coming back to the 200-week moving average. Looks like this gap was filled. This gap was filled today. Put that gap. It's a small gap, but I put that gap on back here in November. Bitfarm. Oh my gosh. Bitfarm are back to November 2023 prices, $1.42. Marathon Digital, CLSK, Iris Energy. We gonna make it? No need to do TA and all this. There's no need. It's just after here, after the reversals, after the sell signals, the lower highs, it just continues to crash down. Riot. I haven't been in a long on these for a while. I think it was back in here, back in November. I haven't been in a long position since. Hive, MIGI, oof, 84 cents, 85 cents. MicroStrategy, oof. Been talking about it, been covering it, right? Hit target 4, just missed the gap. Seems like it's going to come back, hit this yellow line, come back, hit the gap, come back, hit target 4. It's already back in the target 3. But MicroStrategy is buying more. More. It's all news. It's all noise and it's all narratives. T-Doc, Lemonade. That's not working out great. PayPal. Gap. SoFi. Gap. Had a nice run. Look at that run. What a nice run that was on SoFi. Woo! Even from this last. Oh, yeah. That was nice. Rivian. Upstart. What else? What else? What else? Oh, yeah. That's what we should look at. But, sir, there's $1 billion in ETF inflows. Yeah, but it's crazy that you don't talk about the outflows. You only talk about the inflows, right? So let's go to HODL. They all look the same, right? You're going to see that they all look the same. But HODL, I have it mapped out on the targets, and they're still valid, right? The ETFs did not make a higher high, whereas Bitcoin did with the wick. Did not make a higher high on wick or candle closes, and now it's breaking down, right? So now you could also add a gap up here, may or may not get filled. If ever, right? So you got HODL. You've got one target hit so far, similar to Bitcoin, right? Very similar to Bitcoin's targets that I had laid out, mapped out, that I'll probably redo again. But yeah, the probabilities are increasing that the top is in on HODL, that there's a lower high. Price is breaking down, similar to the NASDAQ, similar to Apple, similar to the only thing is that HODL is it's such a newer asset that there is no 200-week moving average. But target 1 come back down to 107, and then target 2, target 3, and then you got all these gaps down below, right? And this would kind of line up with below here would kind of line up with Bitcoin coming back to the 200-week moving average. So the lowest is 55. So if price did come back down and retest that, it's most likely near a 200-week moving average on Bitcoin as well. So it is going through a correction right now, and we'll see what happens. But they all look similar. And by the way, if there are inflows on ETFs, that means that they could short these ETFs as well, right? So if you're going to short an ETF, it's like buying an ETF. But so it's kind of like buying it because you're shorting it. So it could create a short squeeze, which buys, or they sell it, right? They have to buy it first, and then they take leverage short against it, depending on what asset. All these pre-sales, stupid. CELH, close to the bottom. No for monthly, quarterly swings. Oh, we can take a look at it. We'll take a look at it. We'll come back. Oh my God. Where to buy token? Where to buy token? Put user in timeout. They're in timeout. Where to buy token? User in timeout. Let's see. Yep, they're in timeout. So yeah, that's the Bitcoin ETFs. What else? What else? Surety, Pro Shares, Ultra Short, Dow Jones Transportation had a big move off before the bounce. TQQQ, bearish as it should be. What else? Wolf. Wow. Wolf is down 32%. Another Bitcoin mining stock. SMCI, yeah, we already covered that one. Natural gas, pending sell signal. Okay. What else? $2x Bitcoin strategy. So that's a 2x ETF leverage. Breaking down leverage all over the place for Bitcoin, like all over the place. Render. What else? What else? Panwa. PanW. Oh, XCN. This is the hot one. This one was really hot up until yesterday, right? Let's look at the 1 hour chart for fun. Yeah, so it pumped hard. XCN pumped hard, currently down, or was down 45%, currently down 37%. But it pumped hard just in a matter of like a week, right? Whew, what a move. What a move. I didn't catch that one. My buddy did. My buddy told me about it. He caught it, took some off. He took some off the table here, took some off the table here, and he may be still holding it. He hasn't told me, so he's probably given back some gains already. But they always tell you when they've got the gains. They don't tell you when there is bearish divergence showing up, but it could remain diverged. So who knows? Who knows? There is bearish divergence, though. Bearish divergence. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. CELH, huh? CELH. Right? Is that stock? Must be. Celsius? So what are we on the daily chart? Daily chart's been on a bear market for a while, right? So bear market, May 2024. Same old, right? You got the divergence, you got the breakdown. Price comes all the way back to the 200-week moving average. Then price goes below it. Now, is this starting to look like a bottoming phase? Yeah, it could remain going through a bottoming phase for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, who knows, right? You could say it's been going through a bottoming phase for a year already. Maybe not quite a year, but weekly chart. What else? 2-week chart. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's it's not out of the woods yet. And it might, and for the monthly chart, the 2-week chart, the weekly chart, and for the ship to get turned around, it's going to take some time, right? It's going to take some time. If you're looking at the monthly chart as an example, these trending dots are going to trend down. So even if the bottom is in on price, right, and the trend dots come down, and it finally starts to turn around then, right? That could take a while. However long it takes, it could take a while. So it's still in a downtrend. Could it, based off of the daily chart, could it pump up, come back down? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And then come back up, and then who knows after that, right? So that's the only point, is that it's bearish on the monthly chart. It's bearish on the 2-week chart, the weekly chart, and the daily chart. So it's just currently bearish. There's nothing to really report. Making lower lows, lower highs. There is bullish divergence going all the way back to August 2024. So that is a positive sign. So once there is a higher low, then that would be a higher probability of at least a bounce, right? So at least a bounce. If you get while the ship gets turned around on higher time frames, you know, you kind of see where the trending dots are, right? So if you saw like this is this is everyone's favorite TA in the Discord, right? That, and then it breaks out, pumps up while the higher time frames are still bearish, and then comes back down, right? So very similar to what I kind of drew out on the monthly chart. Woo! Yep. Found it. Yep. Oh, is that it? Is that it? Oh. Is that it? Let's take a look at everything. But instead of me talking, I'm just going to go through some charts real quick. Let me catch my breath. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't really see anything else that we already covered that that's mind blowing, and I don't see any other chart requests. So I think that's about it. I think we'll cover it here at 10:47. Woo! Long session today. Almost 2 hours, about an hour and 45 minutes. A couple water breaks along the way, but or one water break and couple breaks along the way. But yeah, that's basically what it is. Remember, the quick recap is if the NASDAQ is going through a bigger correction, let's say 30% by retesting the 200-week moving average, not calling for a dot-com bubble crash, right? Hindsight will be hindsight, or a 2008-like crash. But if all it does is correct towards the 200-week moving average, like it does pretty much every couple of years on the charts, then I would expect Bitcoin to do the same thing, and Bitcoin would be let's see, that would be if it's a 30% drop on NASDAQ, it's 60% on Bitcoin. That pretty much lines up. So that's what I expect. I don't there's a lot of narratives, a lot of noise, a lot of people talking about it's a store of value, but it depends on when you buy, right? It depends on when you buy. If price goes back to $45,000 and goes back and retests the 200-week moving average, right? And you bought at 65,000 in 2021, is it a store of value? I would say no, right? I would say no because you're upside down. If you bought at $45,000 back in 2021 and price goes back to $45,000 in 2025, then is that a store value? That's 4 years at the same price. And there's many other assets that you could have been swing trading or taking positions in that had much higher returns, like NVIDIA or whatever. So I'm all about realizing gains. I'm pro profit and pro swing trader so that I don't just buy and hold myself, because what if it was a dot-com bubble correction type of correction and it takes 15 years to make a new all-time high? I don't have that kind of time. I'm already 45. So I'm already 45. What is this? Good music. BTC realized price 42K, so it is plausible. It isn't going to be the first time. Yeah. So, anyways, up only is not. It's not $1 million Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's not $0. The reality is somewhere in between, right? The reality is somewhere in between. They've been talking about Bitcoin going to $1 million back in 2021 bull cycle. Now again in 2024, 2025 cycle. And then you got the perma bears talking about Bitcoin going to 0. I don't think the big players built all these ETFs and futures and leverage and all these businesses off of it to let it go to 0. So I don't think it goes to 0. And maybe one day it goes to $1 million, but it wasn't going to be 2021. Doesn't seem like it's going to be 2025. And so could just take a lot longer than what people think it would take. But maybe it'll eventually get there. But for now, it's starting to look like the local top. Could it be the top? Sure. Too early to call it yet. But in hindsight, if the price does come back to the 200-week moving average in 2025, in hindsight, it was the top. But all the tops start with local tops, right? So that's the way it is. There it is. Could it reverse back around and go to 125? Definitely. It definitely could. but I think it's less likely. And I think the odds are decreasing of that. And I think the odds are increasing of the potential of prices going, back to 90,000, back below 90,000, maybe to 80,000, $74,000 CME gap, and so on and so on. Remember, there are a lot of leveraged long positions, billions and billions of liquidations for leveraged longs down here, right? So leveraged longs are down here. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Let's see. I'm just doing the eyeball test. I'm not going to get actual real data, but I don't care that much, right? It doesn't factor in. Like, I'm aware of it. It just doesn't factor in. Yeah. So you've got like hundreds of millions from 110 of short liquidations from 110 to 120,000. You got like, $200 million, let's say, maybe more, but you have billions from, what was it? 86. Oh, those are a bunch of new ones, right? So 86,000 all the way to 35,000. So 86,000, you get some new ones. So if price reaches that area, it could go fast, right? So it might take a while for price to get down into this area, but once you go to like this area, it goes really fast. And that's when you could see like a capitulation final movement. That 55 to 35 could happen like quickly within days. Otherwise, this could happen, over time, right? So, whether it's like this, right, comes down, rallies, blah, blah, and then here comes down faster, right? And then starts putting bullish divergence, right? And we're right back to where we were in 2022. And buying that dip, right? Buying the right dip in 2023, January 4th, 2023, buying the right dip, right? So they gave us bullish divergence 2022. They gave us bearish divergence in 2025. Again, they gave us bearish divergence in 2021 multiple times. So that's what it could be, something like that. And this could be the faster move over here once price gets into this area. That's where most of the long liquidations are. Probably, yeah, I'd probably say about 80% of long liquidations are down here, right? And then down over here, rally, trap some more bulls to help push it down over here. This is exactly how it played out in 2022, right? Came down, 30% move, right? Is that a 30% move? Yeah. So just say a 30% move. Then there was a nice 2 to 3 month rally, right? However long that is, 3-month rally, followed by the final 30%. There was like another 30 or 40% lower, right? Yeah, whatever it was. So another huge move, right? And then, of course, this could take out longer too, but just kind of pointing that out, that you got the long liquidations here, and then you've got most of the long liquidations down here. So that's 3x, 5x, 10x leverage. And then, of course, you got the higher leverage that plays the games up here and takes time for it to play out, and it battles it all the way down because of the higher leverage, like higher than the 3, 5, and 10x. So that's that. I think that's all we got today. Whew, we went hard. We gave it our all. $99,000 Bitcoin. It was just $109,000 a few days ago. And here we are back to below $99,000. So with that, hope you have a good rest of your day. We're off to a great start of the week. And we'll see you on the next live stream. I'll be posting charts on Twitter X, of course, the Discord, trading bot, all that stuff. We got a lot going on. So with that, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.